Samantha Collins was used to the attention and care that her wealthy parents surrounded her with from an early age. Being the only child in the family, she had everything that most children her age could only dream of. Lots of toys, her own room, and a closet full of all kinds of dresses and shoes. Samantha's father held a senior position in one of the New York trading firms and could afford many things that were out of reach for people with average incomes. That's why Samantha was growing up a spoiled child, and thus, when she was just starting elementary school, she already considered herself to be the center of the universe. At this age, children from wealthy families are often cruel towards their peers from poorer families, and Samantha's behavior served as a great example of that attitude. She could come to class late and lie to the teachers, coming up with some elaborate excuse without even thinking about the consequences. Samantha didn't treat her friends any better either, behaving as if they owed her something. The parents were never really worried about their daughter's antics and thought she would grow out of it. But the older Samantha got, the more unbearable her character became. Nevertheless, she never suffered from the lack of male attention. Patrick White stood out among all the boys who liked Samantha, as he was secretly in love with her since first grade. The most interesting thing was that for some unknown reason, the boy from a poor family saw Samantha's insufferable temper and never-ending demands as something special, something that emphasized her individuality. Every morning, Patrick ran to the flower bed near the city hall in order to pick roses for the girl who had long become the meaning of his life. His classmates looked with bewilderment as he courted Samantha with the dedication of a faithful servant or a lackey. Patrick didn't just carry Samantha's backpack, but also did her homework and her tests for her. At the same time, he tried not to notice that Samantha lived a completely different life, in which there was no money trouble or clothes bought at sale. Patrick's mother worked as a waitress in a roadside cafe, but his father was disabled and could only move around in a wheelchair. 10 years ago, Robert White suffered a spinal injury while loading logs at a logging company site. Of course, the company covered all the expenses associated with the treatment of the injured employee. But unfortunately, that didn't help Robert, who remained disabled and had to adjust his life to the new reality where he was stuck in a wheelchair. Patrick remembered well the tear-stained face of his mother when she learned about the misfortune that befallen her husband. At that moment, the boy wanted to become a magician who could rewind time with one movement of his magic wand and save his father from ever getting injured. Patrick wanted to help his mother, so he tried to find a part-time job to add at least a little extra income to the family budget. Thus, the boy read the newspaper out loud to the old man O'Donnell, who lived 2 houses away. The man was blind and paid 50 cents a day for Patrick's services. Of course, this amount might seem ridiculous to some people, but to a teenager who grew up in a poor family, it was a fortune. Moreover, Patrick did other odd jobs for anyone who was willing to hire him. He could mow the lawn, or walk the neighbor's dog, or run to the grocery store for a frail old woman. The most interesting thing was that the teenager didn't set a specific price for his services, but everyone understood his situation, and so they paid him fairly. "You are my favorite breadwinner and the best helper," his mother always told him with pride in her voice. Patrick gave almost all of the money he earned to his family. The only exception was when the teenager wanted to give Samantha some kind of a gift. Of course, the spoiled girl saw Patrick's gifts as something ridiculous and insignificant. Most of the time, Samantha simply laughed at her boyfriend's gifts and threw them out almost immediately. That obviously hurt Patrick's feelings, but love is often evil and punishes those who least deserve it. However, the most insulting thing for the teenager was the fact that Samantha refused to go to the prom with him. "Patrick, don't pout. My parents bought me a gorgeous dress. They hired a photographer. I don't want you to ruin the photos with your cheap rental suit," Samantha said in a tone that brooked no objections. "But everyone thinks we're a couple. How would it look? I always thought we'd go to prom together," Patrick exclaimed with resentment in his voice. But there was no changing Samantha's mind. In Patrick's mind, that was a real betrayal. Samantha didn't know that in order to buy himself a suit, the teenager saved up money for about 6 months, working as a loader in a household appliance store. At some point, Patrick realized that he didn't want to go to prom without his girlfriend. Mad at the whole world, the young man took the suit back to the store and refused to take part in the graduation festivities. Deep down, Patrick hoped that Samantha would change her mind and want to see him next to her at the prom. Unfortunately, Samantha disappointed her boyfriend yet again. Enjoying her time at the prom, she didn't even once think of the young man who was in love with her. Unlike Patrick, she was in no hurry to start college after school, choosing to take a break for a year or two to have some fun. Samantha knew perfectly well that her father could provide for her in the meantime. In the worst-case scenario, she could always marry one of the sons of her father's partners, who were all very well off. So why do I even need to go to college? I've just graduated from high school and don't want to waste a few more years of my life sitting in boring lectures, Samantha thought, beckoned by the flashing lights of nightclubs. But if she could count on the support of her wealthy parents, then Patrick had no one to rely on. The young man understood perfectly well that a degree in economics would open many doors for him, behind which a successful career, stability, and wealth were hidden. It was at this point that Samantha decided to cut all ties with him. We have no common interests, Patrick. I want to live a rich life and enjoy every day of it. And you dream to spend the best years of your life within the stuffy walls of the university. Goodbye. I have nothing more to say. You will never understand me because you grew up in poverty and are so used to counting every dollar, Samantha declared. Such unjust treatment brought tears to Patrick's eyes. For so many years, he dreamed that one day they would start a family and have children together. Goodbye, Samantha. You've made your choice, and there's nothing I can do about it, the young man whispered, and slamming the door, disappeared into the evening. Patrick had to go through a lot before he could start his new life without the whims of his rich girlfriend and her parents. After graduating from the university, the determined young man got a job at a trading company, whose HR team recruited the promising student when he was still in college. Working 16 hours a day, Patrick had achieved impressive results in just 3 years, even though it usually took other people decades. After Patrick White became the head of the firm, his life changed for the better. The young businessman bought a large house in one of the best neighborhoods in New York and married the daughter of the owner of the company. He didn't do it for the money or status. Patrick's heart had suffered enough and was finally ready for new love. Brittany turned out to be the complete opposite of Samantha, and having surrounded her husband with love and care, understood him perfectly. For the first time in several years, Patrick felt truly happy. To provide his wife with the best and most comfortable life possible, the young businessman resorted to the services of a cleaning agency, so they would send someone to clean the house once in a while. It was one of those days when Patrick called the agency and left an order for cleaning the house. Then the young businessman went into his study, where he got to work with some documents. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. Oh, it's probably the maid, Patrick thought, and hurried to open the door. Imagine the businessman's surprise when he saw his first love, Samantha Collins, standing at his door. The woman was dressed in the company uniform and was holding a bag of all the necessary cleaning equipment. Samantha, what are you doing here? And why are you in this uniform? Patrick asked in surprise. Of course, Samantha immediately recognized him, and there was nowhere to hide, so he had to answer his questions. I work as a cleaner, Patrick. It's been 2 years now. My father went bankrupt and came down with a stroke. We spent all the money we had left on his treatment. Patrick just stood there and couldn't believe his eyes. Samantha has changed a lot over the years. She didn't look as pretty and didn't seem as confident as she used to. Sadness and disappointment froze in the woman's eyes. caused by all the hardships he had to face, which she clearly wasn't ready for. Seeing the wedding ring on Patrick's finger, she understood everything without words. Taking a rag and a mop, Samantha started cleaning the house, trying not to meet the eyes of the owner. It's highly unlikely that Samantha ever felt any remorse, and Patrick knew it like no one else. The memory of Samantha's rejection was still alive in the young businessman's mind, as well as her ruthless refusal to go to the prom with him. But now, looking at the woman he used to love, Patrick had absolutely no feelings left for her. After Samantha finished cleaning, Patrick gave her a good tip and even called her a cab. But it was foolish to count on anything anymore, and Samantha knew it. "Goodbye. I hope that we'll never see you again," Patrick said and closed the door. At that moment, he finally said goodbye to his past and got back to his new life where there was mutual love and understanding.